So, what does power really look like? For this explainer, we're diving into a source that presents this absolutely fascinating anatomy of false power. We're going to peel back its layers one by one, from its glamorous public face all the way down to its hidden spiritual engine, using these incredibly powerful archetypes drawn from scripture.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off with the glamorous facade of power, and then we're going to uncover the commercial skeleton that holds it all up. From there, we'll get into the spiritual shadow that really animates the whole system, meet its final ultimate figurehead, and then we'll discover the one surprising archetype that stands against all of it.
So first up, we're starting with the most visible face of this entire system, the city of Babylon. Now, our source doesn't present this as just, bricks and mortar. No, it's presented as this seductive, queenly figure.
And right here, this quote from the prophet Isaiah just nails Babylon's core identity. See, it's all built on an illusion of permanent glamour, this fantasy that it's immune to any consequences. The city literally says to itself, "I am an eternal queen," totally convinced that no one sees the violent foundations it's really standing on.
Babylon's appeal isn't just about brute force. It's this carefully cultivated untouchability built on softness and luxury. And here's the really sharp insight. The city has to be desirable before it can become disposable. It has to teach the nations of the world how to dream before it teaches them how to drown.
But here's the thing. This soft luxury, it's not innocent. Not at all. It's only possible because it's built on a foundation of unseen violence and outsourced labor. That comfort you see in the center is only possible because of all the harsh realities that are kept carefully out of sight.
And then we get the other side of the coin, the masculine side of this same power, and it's embodied by King Nebuchadnezzar. You can just picture him standing on his palace roof, looking out over this whole spectacle of a city, and seeing it as a direct reflection of his own greatness, his own personal destiny.
Okay, so you've got this glamorous facade, but what's holding it all up? Well, behind the spectacle of Babylon, we find its skeleton, this vast, sprawling body of trade, and it's personified by another city, Tyre. This slide just lays out the core distinction perfectly. Babylon is the dazzling spectacle, the thing that sits in pearls and intoxicates the world with glamour. But Tyre? Tyre is the invisible commercial choreography that powers it all. It's the system that moves the pearls and invoices the nations. This is the world of Tyre. It's not about glamour at all. It's about routes and cargo, payment rails, and supply chains. This is the world of systematic, cold, commercial genius. It's the ledger, the manifest. It is the deal.
And you know where this leads, right? The prophet Ezekiel shows us the inevitable outcome. All that commercial magnificence, it swells into this metaphysical arrogance. The ruler of Tyre mistakes his mastery of these complex systems of trade, of logistics, of finance, for divinity itself.
So, we've seen the glamorous show and the commercial system that runs it, but this leads to an even deeper question. What's the ultimate source of all this power? Where's it really coming from?
Look, it's not just politics, and it's not just about money. The argument we're exploring here is that beneath all these visible layers, there lies a much deeper, spiritual source. In the book of Revelation, it names this source with just stunning clarity. It's the dragon, who is identified as Satan. The text presents the dragon as the one who actually animates this entire machinery of deception, the one who gives the beast its power, its throne, and its authority.
So how does this source actually operate? Well, first, through accusation. It fuels public shaming and manipulated outrage. Then, through counterfeit sovereignty, offering a fake sense of the sacred to satisfy a very real human hunger for something ultimate. And finally, through war. It gives the whole system its emotional electricity, its theological charge, and it turns public life itself into a kind of cultic field.
Now, this kind of spiritual power, it doesn't just stay in the shadows as an abstract idea. No, it ultimately concentrates and funnels down into a single, culminating figure.
And this figure, called the man of lawlessness, he is the ultimate usurper, and he reveals the endgame of this whole progression. At this point, false power, it just drops the masks of seduction and systemic control. It starts speaking openly in sacred terms, setting itself up in God's temple and literally proclaiming itself to be God.
Okay, so we've built this entire elaborate architecture of false power, from the glamour of Babylon all the way to this final usurper. But against all of that, our source presents the true center of resistance and the decisive reversal of the whole drama. And this is where everything pivots.
Because in Revelation, true sovereignty doesn't show up as a devouring beast or some self-exalting king. It appears as a lamb, one that looks as if it had been slain. Its power is found not in domination, but in what the text calls wounded fidelity and sacrificial kingship. So the central argument here, the thing you've really got to get, is that every single false figure we've looked at is just a parody, a cheap knockoff of a true form that's revealed in the Lamb. The beast's false rule is a counterfeit of the Lamb's true kingship. Babylon's false beauty is a parody of the true bridegroom. The mark's false sense of belonging just imitates the true seal of God's people.
So when you get right down to it, the answer to all this counterfeit power, this fake intimacy, it's not some abstract idea. It's an incarnate reality. It's a true authority that actually bears wounds, a true sovereignty that can be touched. It is the slain and risen Lamb.
And that's the kicker, right? To conclude, these ancient patterns aren't just history. The glamour of Babylon? It's alive and well in our social media feeds. The cold logistics of Tyre? They power our global supply chains. The cultic thrones of false kings? They're rebuilt in our media studios. These patterns are still with us. They've just been pushed into their most technologically saturated forms.
And that's really what this whole explainer leaves us with. This isn't just some historical or theological exercise. It's a challenge, really. A challenge to develop the insight to identify these powerful, ancient archetypes of false power as they operate in the world all around us today.